Hi, everyone. This is the Coffee with a Geek show, and it's December of 2019. I've got some Santa things in the background. Today, I am really honored to have Jake Miller with me. Jake is an instructional technology coach and father of three from Ohio. His blog, jakemiller.net, is one of the most valuable blogs to get some great ideas, tips and tricks, and fabulous edu-GIFs. Or is it GIFs? Uh, he also has a podcast titled Educational Duct Tape, great name, which I'll ask him about. And if you want to connect with Jake, I would definitely recommend his website, of course, and the Twitter page. Jake Miller is at Jake Miller Tech. So Jake, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Andrew. It's an honor. Thanks for the invite.
Great. I thought we'd start off with a really important question to begin with that I ask a lot of my guests is, what's your favorite coffee blend?
You know, I've actually got a cup of it here in my Yeti. I got to keep it nice and hot for me. It's a local company. I'm in Kent, Ohio, and there's a company that roasts their own here called Bent Tree Coffee. And they have a blend called Papua New Guinea, and it's like the only thing I drink. I was so proud the other night. My father-in-law was over. He's normally like a gas station coffee kind of guy, and I was making a cup of coffee in the French press, and I said, "You want a cup?" And he said, "Sure." And then I gave him a cup, and last night he texted me and said, "Hey, what was that coffee we had the other night? I think I'm gonna go get some for myself." So Bent Tree Coffee, if you're ever in Kent, for sure.
Nice. It sounds delicious. So the first question that I ask a lot of my guests is just tell me your educational journey because, you know, I know you from the blog, I know you from your bio, but tell me your educational journey.
So I've been in education for over 15 years now. I started off as a math teacher, a middle school math teacher, which was kind of when I was in college, that was my dream. I wanted to teach math because that's what I loved so much when I was in school. And I thought it was going to be my dream for forever. I taught math for about 8 years in middle school. And even at that time, I thought, this is amazing. I'm going to retire as a math teacher in 30 years in the same position, in the same classroom. I just love what I'm doing so much. In that position, I started using a smart board a couple of years in, and that was kind of my first big foray into technology because it was 2005-ish, and a smart board was really innovative at that point in time. And then after a couple of years of that, by year 7 or 8, I had to go and start getting my master's degree. You know, you got to get those credits to keep renewing the license. So I decided to go get go to grad school and get my master's degree. And what I landed on was educational technology, or instructional technology, the program was called. And I didn't really feel super motivated to learn more about instructional technology. I just thought like, no, I don't want to be an administrator. I'm not interested in being a curriculum director. I do like to use technology. Maybe I'll just study that. That seems like it could be a beneficial thing to use. But then I found pretty quickly in that program that it kind of ignited a spark, you know, that kind of kept going over the next few years. So after those years in math, I decided I needed a change of scenery and switched to science for a year, which is the first place I really had the kids in my classroom using technology. And then I was invited to design and teach a middle school STEM program, which I did for 3 years. And that was really when I started using Google Apps in my classroom, because before that I kind of used it on the side myself, but then I started using it with my students. And then I was really seeing the power of instructional technology in class. I was seeing what my kids could do in a student-led learning environment with technology versus a teacher-led environment with just a smart board. And then as I was doing that, I started realizing, man, I really like those times where through my master's program, I have to teach other teachers how to use technology. This is something I really enjoy doing, is helping the other teachers see the value. And so then I started looking for like a tech coach job. So that's what I've been in for the last 4 years now, working at a middle school as a tech integration specialist or instructional technology coach, trying to coach the teachers to use it in ways that benefit them in the classroom without it being such a scary thing to take on.
So, you know, your blog, there's so many great educational blogs. I'm sure you follow a plethora of them yourself.
Yeah.
But yours is kind of different. For those of you who've never checked out your blog, can you tell us kind of what was the structure? Tell us about your blog and how you came up with it, and maybe give us a little more details about that.
Yeah, so my blog, to be honest, sometimes I look at it and I go like, I wish I was a little more organized with what I was putting forth, and I had like sections of different things. But the way I work with my blog is I just go, what does people who I would consider to be part of my ideal audience, which is educators, what do they want to see? So it just becomes a hodgepodge of things that they need to see that maybe is not already out there, or maybe not already out there in the format that I might think they'll react to. And so it just becomes whatever sparks my excitement to share to them. You know, it actually started about 4 or 5 years ago. I was on Twitter, and when I was starting to want to reach further out of the school building that I worked at, and I was sharing a daily Google Apps for Education tip. And I called them GAF tips, GAFE, as in Google Apps for Education. And I'd share one a day, and it was only a screenshot. And a friend of mine said, you know, you probably should get a website and start putting these together on there. So that's what I did. And then a while later, I said, you know, I'm going to really try to ramp this up, and because I really want to affect more teachers so I can affect more students indirectly. And so I started recording screencasts, and I found out that those weren't really getting viewed outside of me and my mom. My mom loved them. so that kind of became the impetus of these GIFs, these edu GIFs. I tried it out and found out, wow, people love these. And so that's kind of become the driving force of my blog, is just I create these GIFs and I share them out there in ways that I hope are helping teachers, and feedback tells me it is helping. So that's become really what my blog is all about, are these little 20 to 30, maybe 40-second animated loops of some kind of tech tip. Maybe it's a tip using Google Keep, maybe it's Google Classroom, maybe it's Pear Deck, maybe anything, whatever I think can benefit teachers. And that's what I use the site for now.
Yeah, and that's a really kind of different spin to most blogs. So it gives you something quick and easy and gives you a visual. Can you talk maybe about how that relates to today's teacher? I mean, is that something teachers should start gravitating to with kids learning visually in so many different ways? Do you think that's, I guess, where education is headed, or a value, or think that's a great learning tool?
Yeah, I use it at the school I work at now when we do like technology related lessons, or when I push into a classroom and I support the technology in a regular content area lesson. And I find, first of all, that I don't want to be sage on the stage up in the front of the room talking about technology with them all watching me. So then I need a second option. And I've found, starting years ago in that STEM classroom that I started teaching 7 years ago, the kids didn't want to watch my screencasts. You know, I could record a 7-minute long video about how to do anything, and they were unlikely to watch and pay attention to the whole thing. And it's that attention span that kids have nowadays, and that we as adults even have too. And so I find that these GIFs really encapsulate it well. So I find it's a really good way to show them just what they need, just quick enough, and let them kind of fill in the in-between parts and really own the process of using that stuff. So I do find them to be really valuable with students as well as with adult learners.
So I saw this actually on your blog, but again, for people not familiar with your work and just first-time people, what can you tell me? What's the process behind creating it? What tools do you use? That sort of thing. And
yeah. So you actually already mentioned earlier the educational duct tape podcast that I'm about to launch, and actually episode 1 I'm going to dive kind of headlong into how I do it. But just the quick overview of it is I use Camtasia. There are ways to do it for free or for less money than Camtasia, where Camtasia is a pretty high-end, expensive screencasting software. It's about $160 or so, less for teachers than it is for the general public. Free for Google trainers, by the way. That's how I originally had it. But it kind of is the Cadillac of screencasting software. So that's what I create, is I use Camtasia to create my GIFs. The reason I like Camtasia so much is I could take maybe a 2-minute long screencast of me doing something, and then go through and cut out the unimportant parts. Maybe while I'm typing, I speed it up to quadruple speed and things like that. And then I can zoom in on certain areas of the screen and really focus the viewer, because in a GIF, they don't have my voice. So I need to be able to focus the viewer in on things. And that's why I really like Camtasia versus some of the other tools that are out there. Not that the other tools aren't good, and, you know, on a teacher budget, it's understandable why people use them. Oop, I lost you there.
There we go.
Oh, sorry about that.
There we go. Sorry. No, that was me. What kind of tech trends do you see, if we can kind of widen the lens out? What are your tech trends you're kind of following, you think are going to come down the pike here? You
know, one thing I was really, I just think about today actually, is how we see Chromebooks starting to kind of do everything. You know, we used to say, okay, well, we need if Chromebooks are schools' object of choice, like we need the Chromebooks, but then we also need some iPads for when they're doing maybe recording green screen videos. Well, now you could do some of that on We Video, and maybe okay, we need that, but when we want kids to actually be able to move things around with their fingers and their hands and hold it like a tablet. Well, now Chromebooks are starting to do that, and then okay, well that's great, but then we also maybe need a good camera. Well, now they're starting to have world-facing cameras on them too that are of high quality. That's good, but now okay, let's also get the AR and VR headsets, and now we're actually starting to see them doing that too. And okay, well that's great, but then in our lab where a 3D printer is, we need some PCs to run those, and Chromebooks aren't there yet, but they're even starting to be able to do that kind of stuff too. And so that's something that I think is really interesting, is seeing it used to be kind of compartmentalized based on what you're trying to do, and now not just Chromebooks, but a lot of devices can do kind of all of those things, which is really cool to see happening. Great for schools' budgets too.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You mentioned, with your math background, and I've always been fascinated by this notion, because I've always thought, I think there's a tactile learning piece, especially with, students writing and students doing math. I think there's that, again, that pen to paper kind of tactile learning piece that sometimes technology has kind of minimized and maybe, for lack of a better word, kind of been an obstacle, I think, in some cases. Do you think with touch screens capability, and a lot of the newer tablets, Chromebooks are having styluses, do you think that's not by accident, that's by the fact that kids can learn maybe, or we can all learn using like stylus and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's all, I mean, obviously as a company, with Google that is really leveraging themselves in the education market, I think it's certainly not just a coincidence that they're able to do it now. It's a conscientious, like this is a movement we should make. And yeah, and in like you said, the math classroom, but also all classrooms, to be able to draw things now and annotate images and mark up pictures and things like that. I mean, like what a huge, bonus for our learners that they could do that kind of stuff now.
So tell me about, you've already mentioned your podcast a little bit. So when does it roll out again? And what are some of the other maybe topics and things you want to explore in the podcast?
So the podcast is called Educational Duct Tape, and I know it's a silly term, but it's a metaphor. It's one part silly metaphor of mine, and one part an Edtech decision-making mindset. So the focus is on using technology in schools the way we would use duct tape or other tools. You don't say, I'm going to use duct tape today. You say, this is the thing I'm trying to solve. This is the goal I have. This is the problem I'm trying to fix. What tool solves it? And oftentimes we turn to duct tape. Well, so I think technology could be the same in the classroom, where we say, okay, well, I really need to know, do my students understand this lesson? Okay, well, there's some great formative assessment tools to use on the computer. I really need to know, okay, my students need to share with their voice about what they're reading in their books. Okay, well, so maybe now we use Flipgrid, or my students really need to start organizing their thinking on this. Okay, so now maybe I teach them how to organize things in Google Keep or something. So starting first with the classroom needs and the pedagogical thinking, and then going to the technology. So episode 1 is already recorded and kind of waiting and in the queue for me to record a few more. I'm going to launch in January. I'm aiming for January 2nd, but the easiest way to know when it happens is to sign up for my newsletter, which is on my site. But then I'm hoping it'll be a weekly show, and what's going to happen is every week we'll have a different guest on, and the guest and myself, and Andrew, I hope maybe you'll consider being a guest maybe in January or February, and we'll talk about a couple different educational scenarios. Maybe it's a problem, maybe it's a learning standard, and kind of go back and forth talking about what types of technologies can help. So for the listener, maybe they'll go, oh, I have that same exact problem or need or goal. Let me see what the suggestion is here. Or maybe they say, well, I don't have that problem, but let me hear a little bit more about that technology he suggests. Maybe that's something that fits another one of my needs. So it's a good chance for us to kind of share both that strategy, which I find that teachers who are a little nervous about technology, they kind of need to hear, like, you don't need to know all the technologies. You just need to learn the one that meets your needs now. So okay, so now you need to get some formative assessment data. Okay, well, so now maybe we should be talking about GimKit or Kahoot or Pear Deck or Nearpod. Don't worry about learning all the other things. So it helps a lot talking about that with the more apprehensive teachers.
So tell me about your inspirations. Who are the people? Maybe, I know we all, as teachers, we always, students, I think, are our number one inspirations. But what are some other inspirations that got you where you are in ed tech?
Yeah. So, obviously they would be remiss if I didn't mention like students, my parents, my kids, that their mindset on life and their outlook on life is amazing. The support of my wife. I mean, like that I could go pursue any opportunity I want to, and she's got my back on it. But in the educational technology realm, I think the first time I realized, wow, I have a voice and the ability to share stuff out there and people will listen was a guy we were actually talking about before we went live, which a local guy for me here in Ohio, which is Eric Kurtz. Eric lives about a half an hour away from me. And when I go out to a conference, I tend to see Eric there. And back when I was just a teacher, quote unquote, going to these conferences, learning things from my classroom, I'd look at the schedule and go, well, this is an Eric Kurtz session. I'll just go to that one because I know it's going to be good. And then I started realizing, well, Eric has these great skills and he's a great presenter and he's a great person, but otherwise, he's just a regular old dude working for a school system too. And he wants to share this. Why can't I do that? And then as I got out on Twitter and I'm seeing, your Matt Miller and your Casey Bell and your Jennifer Gonzalez and Tony Vincent and all these people, they're just educators who've got something to say. And I find when I see people stepping out there and saying their piece about what's good for students and what could help teachers, that's inspiring to me. And that helped me, find my own voice in it.
All right. Well, you wanted to show your podcasts?
What's that?
Are we going to talk about that?
Oh.
I think you were going to show us your podcast, and then we were going to.
Actually, what I did want to show was this. Here, let me share my screen here. See if it pops up here. You see my screen there?
Yep.
Okay, so this link here, I don't know if you've seen Andrew on my Twitter account on my website. I made some stickers recently and had them printed through Sticker Mule about the two different pronunciations of the word GIF. This is the correct way to say it. GIF. Yeah, but there's the two different pronunciations of GIF. Let me go to my site so you can see the stickers. And I shared them last week on Twitter, and they got quite a bit of excitement for these two different stickers, and people have been going to my site to order them off me. But I wanted to for the people listening in on this YouTube live here, if you fill out this form right here, I'm going to pick 5 people to give free ones to. So it's bit.ly/JM coffee for coffee with a geek, obviously, and JM for Jake Miller.
All right.
But I'm also going to put it here in the chat for those people that are actually in here live. So that's bit.ly/JM coffee. Those stickers, the arguments and the bickering online has been a trip based on those stickers.
All right. Well, we're now at the moment of truth here with the Speed Geek question. So now I'm going to share my screen, and I don't want to. We'll bring up the wheel of geekdom here. So
nice.
Just give me a second. And again, these are just short, quick, just quick comments. Some may be fun, some may be whimsical. You decide. Can you see that?
Yep, I see it.
All right. All right. So here goes. So I updated it slightly. So we'll do. So educational blog. This is a tough one right out of the box.
Yeah. I've got a lot of them that I follow and keep going back to, and I follow the people on Twitter. But I think the one that stands out to me is I've never looked at Matt Miller's site, Ditch That Textbook, and not been excited about what I read there. I think all of his posts, from an ed tech perspective, as well as from just a pedagogical perspective, I read his work and I go like, this guy gets it. He gets what's good for kids. The ditchthattextbook.com is just great content there.
Are you going to participate in the summit? I think there's the.
Yeah, it starts in, I think, 2 days, right? It's yes. Friday, maybe the 14th.
Yep. And yeah, he's another just great one. And he came to our area and gave a presentation, and it was fantastic. He provided a lot of tools, a lot of support, really well paced out. He's really something. Yeah, and you're right. His blog is definitely
great A stuff there.
Okay, so our next one is tech trend to watch out for. We talked about this a little bit, but maybe anything else. You mentioned AR, VR.
Yeah, I think AR and VR is going to be huge, but what I'm really interested in seeing is where do we consume that AR and VR? Is it going to continue to be on headsets and our phones, or is it going to start to be in on our Chromebooks? And another like tech trend that I'm watching here is with coding. I think that with machine learning, what's the future of coding gonna look like? Are humans going to be as dependent on typing the actual code in the future, or are the machines going to be able to kind of take over some of that? I'm interested to see, maybe a decade down the road, what happens with that.
Okay, I'm going to keep spinning the dial here, but I'm just going to undo the thing.
I feel like I should be saying like no whammy, no whammy, no whammy as it goes around. Big money, big money, big money.
All right, and then so what's your favorite app?
I'm just on Twitter like all the time. Like if you looked at my statistics on my phone, I think I'm always on Twitter. So that's probably my most used app. One of my favorite ones is called Pocket. I just like recommending it because what it does. So Pocket allows me to take any article I want to read, pull it into my pocket to save for later. But the reason I really like it is then on my car rides, I have a pretty long commute to work. I can go in and just have it read out loud to me over text to speech. And so when I don't have that time at home to read the article, I could say, well, I want to see this one. And then I'll read it in the car, over text to speech.
All right, let's give this spin one more time. And all right, what's your favorite way to unplug from technology? This is a good one.
Oh yeah, that's time with my kids for sure. So I have a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. And even though they'd like to be on technology all the time, getting outside with them, or my 4-year-old, every day when I come home from work, I've got my coat still on, I've got my bag on my shoulder, I've got my coffee mug in my hand, and he says, "Are you ready to wrestle, Dad?" I say, well, hold on, buddy. So I got to set everything down. And there's the nightly wrestling match with my son, and just the time with the kids is awesome.
It is, and I'm sure keeps you plenty busy with that age level.
That's the truth. Yep.
All right. Well, Jake, thank you so much for your time, and we'll keep following you on jakemiller.net. And I'm looking forward to your educational duct tape podcast. So
thanks.
Really exciting stuff. So keep in touch.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. All right.